Welcome to Happy News Network, the mini-sode. We're here to brighten your week while you take a break from doom scrolling. I'm Shayna. We have a special Earth Day group interview today. We have 4 people whose work positively impacts Mother Nature. Our first panelist is Ed Cohen, Board President of Sustainable South Jersey. Our second panelist is OneSave a Day app creator, Maxime Leroux, who we spoke to earlier this season. Our third panelist is Molly Braverman, Director of the Broadway Green Alliance. And our fourth panelist is Siobhan Anderson, co-founder of the Tyre Collective, which Kristen spoke about last season. So welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
So exciting. We've never had more than a mom and daughter type of pairing on here. So to have 4 really accomplished people is really, really exciting. So let's dive in and just take a moment for each of you to briefly introduce yourself and your work. Let's start, Ed, with you.
So I work with Sustainable South Jersey. We're an organization that tries to promote personal contacts with southern New Jersey's ecological resources. For instance, a while ago, we had a tree planting in Linney Ditch Park in Camden. The city of Camden is a low to moderate income community, mostly with Black and Latinx members. And decades ago, they put a sewage treatment plant in the right by the neighborhoods. In the United States, they often put places that people don't want near their neighborhoods in the poorer neighborhoods. And occasionally the municipal authority was very good at trying to work with the neighbors, but occasionally the smell would come into the neighborhood. And so they put up a park. And what we did was we helped put trees around the edge of the park to prevent the odor and the smells from coming in. It would block the wind and cut down the odors. And at the same time, had people from the neighborhood and people from outside the neighborhood come in to learn the story, to have a real personal connection with that event and learn what's happening just a few miles from your home. So that's the kind of thing we do.
That's really exciting. And I can't wait for you to get to share even more of those stories and those projects. All right, Maxime, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi to everyone. Thank you for having me here today. So I'm Maxime. I'm from France, currently studying in Copenhagen in Denmark. And I'm working on a project called OneSave a Day, which is basically trying to solve 2 problems that we've identified. The first one is that lots of people want to do something against climate change, but don't really know what to do on a daily basis. And the second problem is that once we do something, if it's something very little, we feel that our impact is just too small to keep us motivated to do it. And so we created this very simple app that is showing you one simple action you could do every day against climate change. And over a longer term, you may hopefully, and it is the case with some people in our community, develop a more responsible and more sustainable lifestyle. And so we're trying to build up this project. It's been around 2 years now. So it's a very exciting journey.
We've been so actively following everything that you've been doing since last season. So congrats. Molly, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Molly Braverman, she, her, and it is a pleasure to be here today representing the Broadway Green Alliance. We work at the intersection of theater and sustainability, working with Broadway, off-Broadway, touring, college theater departments, anywhere theater is being made, we're there to support it happening in a more environmentally friendly manner. So our mission is to motivate, educate, and inspire the entire theater community and its patrons to adopt environmentally friendlier practices.
Wonderful. And as part of the theater community, it's been really, really enlightening learning about everything you've been doing. And I can't wait for everybody else to hear more. Okay. And last but absolutely not least, Siobhan from the Tyre Collective. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you for having me. So I'm Siobhan Anderson. I'm one of the 4 co-founders of the Tyre Collective. And we are an innovation company working to build technology to capture tire wear at source. So tire wear is actually the 2nd largest microplastic pollutant in our environment. And it goes directly into our air and also our water. In the US alone, about 1 million metric tons of tire wear is produced every year. And there's currently nothing out there to stop this. So we are developing the first patent pending technology to collect this at source and are building a retrofittable device to go onto vehicles.
That's extremely, I want to say very cool because it's so new and cutting edge. And it's something we probably wouldn't have thought about had it not been for your study. So Congratulations.
Thank you.
A lot of everybody's work focuses on different tangible actions and using technological advances to contribute to sustainable or eco-conscious efforts. How did everybody come to find these specific focuses? And Siobhan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. So my team, we first started out looking at microplastics in general. It was something that we found to be really interesting and an emerging environmental issue. And the more we dived into the issue of microplastics, the more we found out that tire wear was something that had really been overlooked and something that we didn't know that much about. But the more and more studies were coming out about it, the more concerned we were becoming. And we decided that we just wanted to do something that could try and create a positive change. And hence the founding of the Tyre Collective.
Creating change is a very constant theme, and it's a very inspirational one. Molly.
Sure. So I began work as a stage manager, as you know, so I didn't start out in this business as an environmentalist. And what was exciting was actually when I was out on tour with Wicked, I became a volunteer green captain, which is one of our programs, which is someone on, every Broadway show or on tour can raise their hand and volunteer to be the environmental advocate on that production. And I volunteered to do so on tour because I felt like, I could make an impact that way. And through that volunteer experience, really started to learn what impact our show had on different communities. And especially as we traveled around the country and I experienced the effects of the climate crisis in different places on, we work with locals in each place. And so that was really eye-opening for me. And so that's how I became more involved and have begun to learn about the environmental movement ever since then. But what I like about that is, I am one example of many of folks in the theater industry or anywhere else who can become, sustainable stewards without having, you don't have to go to school, you don't have to identify, there's no thing is a perfect environmentalist. And that's very much our philosophy, is that everyone has a role to play. No matter, what your position in the theater or in the audience, we all have power and can make an impact.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so touching, so close to home. Especially as a fellow stage manager, it's very comforting to hear that this came from an accidental place of compassion. So, Maxime.
Yeah, so when I started with those very simple daily action, it was kind of fun for me. But then I was like, okay, maybe I should bring it to a larger scale. Maybe I should kind of give access to other people to this tool who might benefit from it as well. And so for me, it was kind of obvious that in order to touch as many people as possible, and also to bring out a kind of global solution to a global problem, which is climate change, I thought about which technology I could use to kind of make this happen on a larger scale. And then I tried to start learning coding on YouTube actually to get this first app done, which is which performed kind of well because it created over the year a community of over 10,000 people actually. And so that's why now we want to make this even larger. And I think technology is just such a good solution to bring it all over the world at very minimal cost actually.
Yeah, and I'm always continually impressed that you taught yourself how to code to make an app. I feel like I struggle just getting Zoom to work. So it's an incredible feat, and it's so exciting that you're bringing it to an even bigger audience. And last but not least, Ed.
Well, I got involved by reading a book, Hot, Flat, and Crowded by Thomas Friedman, who described a world future that wasn't very good for our children. And that really inspired me I was always environmentally, I like nature, but that really spurred me to action, realizing I really needed to make a change. And I found a community of people that are doing things that has turned into sustainable South Jersey, as well as there's lots of people that helped me, and I want to help other people come up the path along with me.
There is a really beautiful theme of different individual interests and actions leading to greater impact. And I think that's sort of a very exciting theme. And it's a very important thing for us all to remember, is that we're part of a bigger picture. We have the whole planet to think about, and we all have different ways of impacting it. So Molly, the Broadway Green Alliance emphasizes taking action to fight climate change and its effects on those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Maxime, your app helps to show global statistics with these everyday tasks people can take to lower individual carbon footprints. How can we overcome economic inequality and work together to be a greener humanity? And Molly, if you wanted to go first.
Sure. So I'm really glad you brought that up. You know, climate and environmental justice are critical in this conversation, and something that we are addressing at the Broadway Green Alliance and as a theater community, especially right now as theater is paused. And that has devastating impacts financially. The COVID-19 crisis on the theater industry and on our professionals has been, something we've never faced before. We're dealing with that at the same time that we're facing an incredibly long overdue reckoning with systemic racism. And we are living in a climate emergency. And all of these things are intersectional and interconnected. And it's critical that we address them holistically, that we don't sacrifice the health of our planet in a rush, in sort of knee-jerk reactions for health and safety, and that we certainly must address the, environmental racism that is happening in our communities. As we know, BIPOC communities, frontline communities, lower income communities are disproportionately impacted by the effects of the climate crisis. And therefore, it's incumbent upon all of us to focus our work on a just transition. So that's where we are.
Thank you for addressing this and for making sure that other people are aware of the different communities impacted by so many intersecting issues that are all things we can work through. And Maxime.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we have those statistics on the app. So actually, when you've done your daily challenge, you will just press one button, which is I did it, and then you will see how many others have done the same challenge on the same day. So what we want to create with that is that we are feeling we feel each other as a strong community. We can actually see or kind of try to visualize our impact that we have with each other. And so we saw that this is actually growing a very, very strong and engaged community because you not only do the challenge, but you also see this and visualize this impact. And so you're motivated to do it again the next day. And so we try to create this community of daily savers, but also beyond that, we want to kind of introduce a new way of living together. We have all the same problem of otherwise nobody will benefit from it if we don't. So we want to kind of be on an equal stage, all of us, no matter where we're from, no matter our income, no matter our status in society, and just do the very same thing. So it's based on a very democratized approach, if you want.
Of course. And it's really exciting. I don't know why I keep saying exciting. It's very fascinating that you have that button that says, I did it, because I've definitely seen it on the different social media posts every day. And to also be able to see through the app that there are X number of other people who did the same exact thing, it does make you feel less alone. So even if you're using this app individually, you still get that statistic to see the bigger footprint that you contributed to. That's a very, very, it's a very nice feature to have.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Ed, shifting to the topic of food waste, approximately 1/3 of food is thrown out, and that is so much waste. I didn't realize that number was so high. What can we do to reduce that number?
Yeah. So let's talk about where food waste comes from. First, at farms. Sometimes farms don't plow all their field, or they leave the crops to waste because it's not economically good for them to do that. Restaurants, they have to estimate how many people are going to show up, and they sometimes misestimate, and so they lose a lot of food. But the biggest impact of food waste is at people's homes. That's where most of it comes. And it's not just that you're losing the food, it's that uneaten food is the biggest single component to landfills. So it's double. We're wasting food and we're putting things in landfills that don't need to be there. And it happens for 5 main reasons. One, spoilage, improper storage, or you just can't see it in your refrigerator. 2, over preparing. You cook too much or you serve too much at a meal. Data label confusion. In the United States, anyhow, we have a best used by or a sell by date. That doesn't have any real meaning, and people are often confused on how to use that. Overbuying, you go to the store and you see something at the end of the aisle and you go, that'll be good, or you buy some vegetables thinking I'll really eat these this week, and you don't. And finally, just poor planning. People don't make a list, or they go out and they eat out a few nights a week instead of eating at home, and so the food they bought goes to waste. So I know this is a happy news network, so those are the problems, but there are solutions. So Maxime said, so one thing is be aware of the issues and then motivate yourself to do that. So things you can do are they're all simple things. Plan your eating and purchases. Figure out what your week's going to look like before you go buy those meals. Look in the refrigerator for food. I mean, visibility is, keep it, it's an easy thing to do. Eat leftovers. Right? I have a sister-in-law who she's not especially well off, but she throws out her leftovers, and I don't understand that at all. But and finally, take the sell by and use best by dates as a grain of salt. If the food doesn't smell bad and doesn't taste bad, it's probably fine to eat. And so all these things, we can save money, save the planet, and reduce food waste. And
thank you for that. I feel like I got called out a little bit because I'm sometimes guilty of going, oh, I love these zucchinis, or I love this, whatever I've just bought to cook this week. And then sometimes I let it go almost a little too long, but I do think it's helpful for other people, especially if the world is more open, who are very on the go and don't always take 5 or 10 minutes to think about their food for the next few days or for the week. It is a helpful thing, if you have a few minutes on a lunch break, just think about it. If you have time on your commute, if you're on the subway or something, it's okay to take a few minutes and plan things like that. Those are some very helpful tips I hope people are able to put into action.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Siobhan, one of your goals is to help make cities healthier. How will cities benefit from less microplastic pollution?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I guess firstly, to really answer that, you need to understand the effects of tire wear as a microplastic pollutant. So when tires wear down, it actually produces a really broad range of size of particles. And some of these are small enough to become airborne. And the other larger ones actually land on the road, and then they're washed into our oceans. So tire wear is a source of both air and ocean microplastic pollution. So when it's in the air, tire wear actually contributes to up to 30% of vehicle PM emissions. So when I say that, PM just means particulate matter that's suspended in the air that you can breathe in. And that's really important because that directly links it to causing lung and heart diseases. And then when it's in our water, it's known to directly affect and kill marine life, but it also works back through our food chain to us again. So having both of these devastating effects. And when you look at that in the context of cities, you have to think about, where is this pollution source occurring? Well, we know that the more you accelerate or brake, you're producing more tire wear. So anytime you're in traffic or where there's areas of high freight, and then also how this is dispersed. So this is occurring at the same height as pedestrians, as cyclists, and at children. So you're already looking at a very vulnerable population that's getting exposed to all of this, but also it's occurring in areas that have more exposure to pollution in general already. So getting rid of this pollution would solve a lot of problems.
Wow, I feel I think the information chain of the entire PN cycle is very important for people to know. And thank you for explaining it in a way that everybody can understand the cause, the effect, and the cycle of how it happens.
Yeah, I hope that wasn't too long of an answer.
No, not at all. And I think it's been so widely studied and reported on the effects of microplastics in our oceans, especially with the effects on marine life populations, but we don't always hear about the effects on human health, especially as we learn what those are. And we want people to still feel comfortable leaving their homes safely every single day. So I didn't even know that the level at which those occur was something that I've probably encountered, living in the city, and all of my friends and all the other New Yorkers I brush by have. So I'm sure other people will hopefully find this very informative. Okay, we are going to switch from land to water. So Ed, we've got a two-part question that we're going to talk about. If you could discuss what rainy day flooding is first. It's not really a question, it's so much as a quick little mini lesson.
Sure. Well, people expect flooding from torrential rains. But what we're finding more and more is that small rain events are causing flooding. And this is particular, it's inconvenient when a road gets flooded, but it's particularly difficult for places, typically older cities that have combined sewer and wastewater treatment. So most modern cities have a separate line for their toilet water and for the rainwater. The rainwater goes to the river and the toilet water goes to the sewage treatment plant. But in some towns, those are combined, like in Camden. So when it rains and it causes this flooding, it's not just rainwater that's flooding, it's sewage that's going into your basement or their kids have to walk through on their way to school, and it creates a real problem.
Okay, and I'm already my PN cycle knowledge that we just got from Siobhan is already spinning, and thinking about the effects of all the microplastics that are in our roadways. And I'm thinking about what Molly was talking about with different towns across America, especially the lower economic ones. What can we all do to improve this situation and make sure people have access to clean water and working through the negative effects of rainy day flooding?
Sure. Well, let's. I think we have to go back a little bit where things were before, right? When you had there wasn't much development. You had forests and fields, and rain would fall on those places, and most of it would stay in the spot and go down to the ground. Now take the opposite example of city, where most of it is paved over with roads or sidewalks or buildings or houses, and the rain in those cases, much of the rain rushes quickly off and goes into the streams and rivers and can cause flooding. Which washes oils from the roads as well as microplastics from the tires. And so it causes a real problem. And it's not due to, climate change exacerbates that by having increased rain events, but the biggest impact is by this overdevelopment, or development, I should say. And even suburban, where you think, oh, there's houses with big grass fields. There's lots of impervious covers, the roofs, the driveways, and even turf. Grass fields are not very good at absorbing water. They typically have 6 inches of grass, but then underneath that, the soil is often compacted, so it's almost like cement. So it's better than a rooftop, but not a whole lot better. All right, so that's the bad stuff. But the new stuff is the old way of thinking also was to get the water from your house into the stream as quickly as possible so you wouldn't flood your basement. The more modern way of thinking is try to get the water back into the ground. And so the way to do that is because nature also does a tremendous job of cleaning stuff. So if we could get the water from the roads to go into an area of native plants, that would clean the water and get rid of some of the microplastics that are going to the ocean. And trees absorb 75% of the water before it even hits the ground. They just grab it from their leaves. So nature does a tremendous job of doing these things. So we just need to add more nature to what we're doing. So one simple step, if you own a home, is disconnect your downspout to the gutter. So some people's downspouts go directly out to the street and try to get it in the ocean away from that. Let that water go onto your yard, right? A similar step is to create a rain garden. So rain gardens are special gardens that they look beautiful, but they actually designed to take a certain amount of water into them. So the water can flow from your downspout into one of these rain gardens, and it will fill up. But the rain garden has native plants with long roots that help drive the water into the ground, and it looks beautiful and it helps pollinators, and it's just terrific. So those are the things we can do.
I really appreciate all the different solutions you bring to the table, because you present such a clear analysis of the problem. And there are also so many different ways that different communities can think of and so many different objectives to achieve in working towards solutions.
Yes, and Camden has implemented a bunch of these rain gardens. The same water waste facility has worked to do them, and they've made a tremendous difference in the amount of flooding that occurs.
Wow. Thank you. Maxime and Molly, both your organizations utilize digital resource sharing. OneSave a Day uses social media to collect and share information, as well as the app itself. Broadway Green Alliance has programs like #Green Quarantine and the Greener Reopening Toolkit. Could you both tell us a little bit more about these different programmings? And Maxime, we'll start with you.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we use Instagram since the very beginning because this was, I mean, when we had the app, we had no users. So we needed to kind of create this community first. And the best way of doing it, for us at least, was through Instagram. So we started to create this community, and actually we're not just growing it, but at the same time trying to educate it with little pieces of information that were going along with the daily challenge. So you will have a challenge, and then we will maybe post some information that goes with it to help you better understand why we want you to do this through social media, because that's where people are, and that's where we can create a global community actually. And on the same side, bringing a bit more than just that what we do with the app, but actually, giving some more information and creating a conversation on social media, which is very important, I think.
Absolutely. And once we started learning about the app through Happy News Network, we all started following the account on social media. And it's so cool. If people haven't seen it, there are different trivia questions every day that you answer in their stories, and you can see exactly where you got the number wrong. There are different statistics. Some days it focuses on pollution, and it usually the questions tie into what the daily action is. So it's this very sort of whole-rounded approach to using the technology cohesively to both educate people and give them actions. So thank you for elaborating more.
So, yeah.
And Molly.
Yeah, I love that. That's fabulous. And it's so exciting, as you've been saying, to hear about all these different ways into action. And that's what our resources are really about. It's providing these free tools that, folks can access in different ways. We have our Green Quarantine series, which we launched last March when theaters shut down, and our free learning sessions about a wide variety of topics. We have Compost 101. We have, green, sustainable stage lighting, sustainable stage management. We have how to, garden, a lot of what you were talking about, Ed, how to garden with sustainability in mind. And so those are all available now and an on-demand library. And we also have, digital resources that you can read, that you can have fun with on Instagram. As theater people, we have, sometimes people ask, what do theater people have to do in the environment? And the answer is, well, every industry has a role to play, including the theater. But what theater folks can do is bring our own unique set of skills to the table. We are great storytellers and communicators, and we're able to frame things, that might be harder to understand in engaging ways. We are community builders. We are good at, engendering empathy through our work. And bringing communities together. And we're great at applauding. So, I love a theme that has emerged today, which is, find your way in and start by doing something. And, and the theater, as soon as somebody does something, we applaud. And it's that encouragement to keep going, to think about how you can be greener tomorrow than you were today. That I think, is really our philosophy, and something that theater makers of all types can bring to the table.
That's wonderful. And it's so nice that these different workshops, they cover such a broad range, like you said, and it ties into all the different things we've been learning about today. So it sort of shows that there's definitely a topic out there for everyone. Maybe some people who don't normally have the time have learned about composting. Maybe some people who are always on the go and want to stop and educate themselves can learn about their impact. And so there are different tools for people to sort of mix and match what works for them.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, Siobhan, what are some of the realistic action plans for removing microplastics and pollutants from water?
Yeah, so the best action plan is really to prevent as much of this pollution as possible, because once these particles are out there, they're very difficult to collect from the environment. And with tires, until really we move to hover cars, it's going to be very difficult to remove our dependence on them. But there still are things that we can do, and we really need public support to do this as well. The first is to really encourage the removal of the very toxic ingredients from tires and encourage research into formulas that could help prevent less wear. And we really need the public to help advocate that they want this change. And this is really something that we're going to need because legislation is most likely going to be required to make a change on this scale. However, with this, it's also really important to note that because of the nature of tires and safety standards for vehicles, wear is always going to occur. And this is still a problem because the physical presence of these particles, even if they're not as toxic as before, is a huge issue. It's still adding to air pollution and to ocean pollution, which leads to the second intervention that we could do, which is looking at how we can stop this from escaping before it gets out there. And this is really the spot that the Tyre Collective is targeting. So this is why we're looking at how we can collect this right at the source, at the wheel, before it can escape out there. And yeah, there's a lot of other opportunities in thinking about how each of us can help contribute to creating this positive change.
Thank you for this and for some of the different breaking down why it happens, how it happens, and some of the different ways that we need to sort of cut off the way that it happens. Is there also a way that promoting public transportation could also help reduce the use of the quantity of tires on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. If we have less vehicles on the road, that is a lower number of tires as well. And also actually an interesting point with public transportation is that it also is an easier intervention point for technology and devices to be used on these buses because they have regular maintenance schedules. It's a system rather than putting the pressure on individual consumers to monitor their own tire wear.
Sure. And something Kristen's talked about once or twice on the podcast is the Virgin Hyperloop that's coming up in the States, and how fascinating the quantity of locations they're opening is, and the quality of level, just the technology that they're putting into this is remarkable. So it will totally, hopefully, transform the way that we can commute on a daily basis. Hopefully, we can have more projects like that start to come up and cut down on those hour to hour and a half drives or flights people take to more eco-friendly mass transit.
Yeah, that's a really exciting shift in mobility.
Yeah, especially in the States, because we have so much emphasis on driving and flights in our highway system. Hopefully we can, at least over here, we can start to really promote interstate mass transit. And I know over in Europe, there's the channel that goes from England to France. There are different methods of transportation via train through country to country. So hopefully we can start to integrate that here in America. Okay, so as the world phases into our new normal styles of living, what are some projects you're working on to help communities or individuals operate more sustainably? And we will start with Molly.
Great. So as you mentioned earlier, we've released our Reopening Theater More Sustainably toolkit, our sustainable reopening toolkit. And I think that's a huge part of our work right now, with theater having, this unique moment to reset and to refocus on the priorities and the values that we want to lead with when we reopen. We obviously are advocating that sustainability is a must. And so we released this toolkit, which is free and available to anyone who wants to access it, that really addresses a lot of the COVID-19 safety measures that will be in place and how we can address those more sustainably without certainly we want to move forward, but we definitely don't want to take steps back. And so we address that there. We're also working with task forces of theater leaders from around the country about how do we not just, put sustainability into our operations and backstage, but into our mission statements and into our core values as theater institutions. And I think that's critical for moving forward. And certainly, again, we must address it in an intersectional way, looking at the other challenges ahead of us in reopening theaters, that we are in fact not going back to the way things were. They weren't working great. We need to, we need to build back better.
Absolutely. And there's so much change advocacy. And I love that you've been so busy during COVID to both educate people and help the actual institutions of the industry make those changes and those plans. Yeah. Ed.
Sure. So I love the way Molly framed it, that we want to bring people in whatever entry point is comfortable with them. So we're doing that. Most of our events used to be in person. So that's with COVID, that's presented a challenge. But we're starting up bird walks and outdoor events where it can be socially distanced, but still help people connect with nature and have them a little tie into our event. Also, what we decided was we really want to make an effort to collaborate more. So we just implemented a policy where each event we have to collaborate with 2 other groups, because just the environmentalists alone won't solve the problem. We really need to work together with the theater people and Tyre people and everybody else. So starting a little collaboration among ourselves, we hope will have a ripple effect and help us all get along better.
I love that. And I can't wait to see what multifaceted projects you roll out. There's already so much that you and Sustainable South Jersey have done. So I'm excited to see the next level.
Me too.
Maxime.
So we are, as I earlier mentioned, we're working on second development phase basically for 2 reasons. The first one is to make the app more attractive as it is right now, so that more people join us and that we become a bigger global community. And at the same time also to empower our community even more. So right now it's very simple, and it will stay as simple as it is right now. But why not in the future adding features when we are a bigger community where we can also empower each other locally? So that would be, for example, the feature where people can organize local events that can help save the planet in a way or another. So it can be educational events or action-taking events or whatever it would be to just help the planet. So we are pretty much working on those 2 things, on growing the community, but also empowering it and also on a local level.
Sure, absolutely. Expanding that concept of safety and numbers, and where do you find those numbers from the people around you? That's really wonderful. And Siobhan.
Yeah, so I guess this goes back to the root of why we started the Tyre Collective, because we started on this because it was something that we felt was a really important problem, and we wanted to make an immediate impact and see what we could do to help the world. And so from that, we are developing our technology, but we're also really committed to making sure there's open knowledge on the subject and raising awareness, and also enabling research. So we're collaborating with different academic institutions all over the globe to help look at this problem further and really understand exactly what is happening and what are the effects, and making sure that we're intervening in the best possible space from like just the particles perspectives themselves, but also where we need to be in cities. And last, I guess our name, the Tyre Collective, has another meaning behind it. Like we're a collective for a reason, because we really believe in interdisciplinary work and collaboration. And so that we want to encourage that on a global scale to help solve really these global problems.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to see the next level of what your research shows and the next level of suggestions and creations, because this technology alone and what the level of research that it involved and the effects of what you've been able to teach us just today in this little time alone, it's been very, very eye-opening. And I can't wait to see what further collaborations help open up too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for sort of embracing this idea of community today. I think especially as we start to think about what our lives are with the COVID pandemic, we can think about community in so many different aspects. So thank you all for raising different and highlighting different ways that we can consider that. My last little question for everybody today is, where can people learn more and follow your work? Maxime.
Well, I think the easiest would be, follow on Instagram or check out the app, or, we have a website as well, but it's not that active. So I think Instagram would be the easiest to follow our progress. And so, yeah.
Thank you. And Siobhan?
Yeah, you can follow our work at the tyrecollective.com and also on Instagram.
Excellent. And Molly?
So you can find our resources and the toolkit in green quarantine at broadwaygreen.com. And you can follow us as well on Facebook and Instagram at Broadway Green Alliance. And on social media, we have a lot of fun with our actors and going behind the scenes. So I recommend checking that out.
I can't wait. And I can't wait for other people to get some additional green entertainment and involvement during their green quarantine. Ed?
You can see us on our website. It's sustainablesouthjersey.org. It's not all about South Jersey stuff. Our things are more global over the borders, but that's a good place to get started, and it has our links to our social media there as well.
And there are some really fantastic community and beyond just the South Jersey region projects that you guys have going on. It was fascinating researching everyone's different organizations. And there's so much that we didn't get to talk about today, but I do want to thank everyone for being here and helping us celebrate Earth Day.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for
I had a good
having
time.
us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
From all of us here at Happy News Network, I'm Shayna. Have a happy day.